Well, this November has certainly been one to remember. I started off the month with a beautiful hills buck, and then a couple weeks later, followed it up on the prairie with my first mule deer buck ever. But in between those hunts, I was able to spend some time hunting with my brother Matt and my cousin Ryan Warwick on what has become my favorite hunting tradition, our annual South Dakota bow hunt. Our first trip here was all the way back in 2007, and for several years the deer population was thriving and we were definitely spoiled by this game-rich environment. Though the quality of the deer hunting in this area has ebbed and flowed over the years, our excitement for this hunt has not, and I was more than ready to chase whitetails and mule deer with my family. The only downside was my dad wasn't able to join us this year due to a recent ankle surgery. So just before Matt and Ryan arrived, I scouted the property from the truck and was seeing an encouraging amount of solid bucks to hunt on the roughly 300 acres that we have access to. Additionally, my cousin had another buck on his trail camera that really caught our attention. A tall-tined, massive-bodied 10-pointer that took the crown as the biggest buck in the area. And it didn't take long before we had our first encounter with the Big Ten. The first morning, Matt and I tucked into a ground blind to get out of the rain, and shortly after, we had the tall rack buck heading in our direction. But unfortunately, he stayed out of range. 2 days later, on the opposite end of the field, Matt and I once again had the big 10-pointer heading in our direction, and once again he just wouldn't commit to the decoy and had other places in mind. A couple days after that, we got our third sighting of this buck as we briefly saw him chasing a doe through an opening in the timber. So now, down to the last 2 days of the hunt, Matt and Ryan headed out to the prairie to spot and stalk mule deer in between the morning and the evening hunt for whitetails. And almost immediately, they found a mature buck bedded with the doe in a perfect spot. And as Matt closed the distance, it seemed as if a coyote was determined to ruin the hunt. But thankfully, Matt was able to get within range and make a perfect shot as the buck stood up from his bed. And just that quickly, Matt tagged his first mule deer buck with a bow on his second stalk ever. After celebrating and taking pictures, we headed back to the creek bottom, and Ryan and I climbed in a tree for a short evening hunt. At last light, the big 10-pointer made his fourth appearance, but didn't get any closer than 70 yards, eluding us yet again. Now down to the last day of the hunt, Ryan and I hunted about 300 yards apart in the area where we had seen the big 10-pointer several times now. Though he didn't show up, in the last hour of his hunt, Ryan had a different 10-pointer come in on a string to his decoy, and he made a perfect shot and watched the buck fall in sight. So, as we celebrated another fun and successful annual hunt, Ryan and Matt headed back home, and I headed out on the previously mentioned mule deer hunt. After tagging a wide muley buck on the 5th day of my trip, I was now back in bow hunting mode and ready to match wits with the big 10-pointer once again.
Get the decoy set up. Get up in that tree right there. Go. All set up and ready to go here. Just come out for a short evening hunt tonight. I've already got a couple deer out in the field here, but this is one of my favorite spots on this property. Got a creek bottom running right by the stand. Then there's a dry creek bed that runs east to west. Big rolling timber off to the east. Deer are filtering down. But it would be about 17 years ago now. It was 2007. Back in that time frame, 2007 to 2010, the deer population was unbelievable. It was just spectacular. The number of deer that were coming down out of these hills and feeding and traveling through this property. I believe it's under this very tree that I'm in right now. That popped up a ground blind, brushed it in really good, and I shot a doe from this spot. Unfortunately, the deer population is just a fraction of what it used to be back then. There's still a decent number of deer. There's still some good bucks in this area. I'm hoping to catch up with that big, tall 10-pointer. Thought my brother was going to get a shot at him one evening in a stand just 100 yards from here. But that evening, that buck ended up coming right through this spot that I'm in tonight. But I've got the decoy out at about 23 yards with the hopes that a buck comes out of the timber, comes out in the field, sees the decoy, and just works this edge. That doe keeps looking back. There's got to be something else coming out from that corner. That's what she was looking back at. Big buck. Come check these does out.
Well, just made it back to the truck here. That was an exciting hunt tonight. Had that buck coming to the decoy there at the end of the hunt, but I had to quietly sneak out of there. There was still a bunch of deer out in the field. But overall, saw a bunch of deer. Saw that mature buck that was out there bumping does. He just never came my way, and I would have definitely considered shooting that buck if he would have come into the decoy. Obviously, it's not the big, tall 10-pointer that I was going in after, but big-bodied mature buck nonetheless. So I'm going to head home, get some sleep here, and then be right back out here again in the morning. And I'm really excited for the morning hunt. I'm going to be hunting real close to here, just on the other side of the road, up in the timber in a spot where my cousin has been getting pictures of this big 10-pointer on his trail camera pretty consistently, and it's usually on a northwest type wind, which I'm going to have tomorrow. It's going to eventually get breezy throughout the day. I think that's a spot to be. So I'm real excited about it, planning to do an all-day sit in the saddle. Be right back up here in the morning.
The sun has just come up over the hills here, warming up my back. It feels pretty good. It's cold this morning. It started out about 22 degrees. Started off the morning. It's kind of glassing down at the field where I hunted last night. There was a couple good bucks down there, kind of having a stare off, and trying to figure out who was going to end up with the doe. But this morning I'm hunting up in the timber in a spot where we've seen, and my cousin has gotten trail camera pictures of, that big 10-pointer on multiple occasions. And what we've noticed through just observation or the trail camera pictures that my cousin has got, by far the best deer movement and by far the best mature buck movement is when there's a westerly or northwest wind, because that this is an east-facing slope. So on a west-northwest, this is the leeward side of the ridge. And it seems like deer tend to bed up on this hillside more often under those conditions. And a lot of the most recent pictures that my cousin has got has been exactly under those conditions. Breezy, northwest winds, cold days. And there's been mature bucks, and that big 10-pointer has been through here on several occasions. But there's this nice little open pocket in the timber right here, and this is where it seems like they move through a lot of the time. There's a trail that kind of comes up right there, and their trail right there. There's a little bit thicker pocket of timber off to my left. I'm guessing that's probably where more of the does and fawns are bedding, and the bucks just cruise through there. But I am a mile high up in this tree, hunting on the steep ridge, even to just get eye level or slightly above where I expect the shot to be. I had to get probably 25 to 30 feet up, something like that. I probably could range it. The distance is far enough. 9 yards to the bottom of the tree, so 27 feet. But it's obviously one of those spots that's pretty tight quarters, not going to see the deer coming from very far away. So I'm going to have to really stay on top of things and be ready. But the good thing is there's this nice big opening that they typically walk through that should give me enough time to get a shot. Deer up on the hill. Look like a doe. Well, it's about 9 o'clock right now. Getting a little bit of cloud cover here. Breeze is starting to pick up. There's deer right there, big buck right there. It's a big one. was it back? That was the big one though. It just kind of came out of nowhere. That's how I figured it would happen. There's just not much visibility here, but he was right there. Just had a little flurry of deer activity there. Saw a 2-year-old buck, doe, and a fawn, and then had a spike come right underneath me. And then I look up, and there he is, coming this way. Either caught onto me just moving slightly, or the wind isn't exactly perfect either. It's kind of blowing more northerly instead of northwest. But anyways, he started getting nervous. He turned around to leave, but they gave me the opportunity to come to full draw, and he stopped. But he was quartering away, fairly steep. So I held, just kind of mid-body, back of his rib cage, low, anticipating that he would duck into it. But anyways, holy cow, that is a big deer, big body, big tall rack, my word. And that's the one I came in here for. That's a buck that we saw a bunch of times when my brother and my cousin were hunting here. My cousin's got an on-trail camera bunch.
All right, just made it back home. Got the laptop pulled up here. Gonna check the footage rather, and see, what I can learn from the video. So what I saw when I shot was that the arrow was good height but back. The sound of the hit was a distinctive paunch hit. It wasn't like a chest cavity pop. It was definitely, hit the deer back. That kind of confirmed what I saw. It was kind of hard to see the arrow though because of the, it was bright daylight. You couldn't really see the lighted knock. There's a lot of contrast between the, the sun and the shade. But for whatever reason, I didn't find the arrow, and I didn't spend a lot of time hanging around in there because my wind was starting to blow back towards the direction that the buck ran. And in case he stopped and bedded down and was close by there somewhere, I just wanted to get out of there. But anyways, here we go. Pull up the footage. Man, that thing is a stud of a 10-pointer. He's every bit as big as we thought he was. But he acted like he's picking up on something there. I don't know if my wind was swirling in there. I don't think so. It felt like it was pretty steady. He starts to get nervous there and is turning to leave, and that's when I come to full draw. Yeah. That is back. That's pretty much exactly what I thought. Dang. I mean, he ducks quite a bit, and he's actually starting to lunge forward a little bit too, but where the arrow hits there, it's back. It's definitely farther back than I wanted, but the way the arrow enters, it almost looks like it kind of deflects at a steeper angle up into his chest cavity. Yeah, you can see the way the arrow is angled, and you can see the shadow of it on the deer's hip to where it's at a steeper angle. It looks like it angles up into his chest cavity quite a ways. So, that may not be, it's definitely still back. It's not where I wanted to hit the deer, but that may be a little better than I initially thought when I first played the clip back, because the arrow just kind of looks like you've just toggled that frame to frame. It almost looks like it would exit just behind his, maybe a couple 3 inches behind his off shoulder, which means it would be, gut through the liver, possibly through the diaphragm and maybe the back of a lung. But I don't know, not great, but not as bad as I initially thought. But liver hits are, they can be highly variable in lethality. I may give it a few more hours here and go back in and just see what I can learn, see if I can find the arrow, see if I can pick up a blood trail. But I don't know, I really don't want to bump the deer. Because with a hit like that, if there's not a lot of blood, if I bump him out of his bed and open country, he could go a long ways before he would rebed, and then you run into all kinds of issues. It's going to be plenty cold overnight. Temperatures are supposed to be, got Willow, she's going to pop in here. Maybe what do you think? Might have to, depending on how things go, I might have to take Willow out and see if she can track it up. She's a good pheasant dog. I don't know how she would do on deer trailing though. But yeah, like I said, I feel a little bit better about it. That's definitely a lethal hit. Now the question becomes, when is the right time to track him? It's going to be plenty cold. Probably go back here in a few hours and slip in and see if I can find the arrow and learn anything about the blood trail. And if there's nothing really outstanding as far as the blood trail goes, then probably just back out. But if I could at least, have some daylight to work with to, see what there is for blood and maybe get a direction of travel, because I lost him pretty quick as he was running through the trees. But I guess, the silver lining is that, for sure it's a lethal hit and it's a little bit better than I thought. I'm sure that the way the arrow angles up in there, it should at least catch the liver.
Man, I wish there was a blanket of snow and make this a lot easier. No, there we go. There we go. There's blood in the snow right here. Good little spray of blood right there. So that's what he did. I thought I saw him come through this opening and went around the head of that ditch right there. That rock as well. So he's heading this direction. There's some more decent spray of blood right there. That's good. At least I have some blood to go on. At least I got a heading now. I know he's coming this way, and I'm not going to go any farther. I don't really see any blood beyond this. It definitely angled up into his chest cavity. It wasn't a straight cut shot. And the arrow doesn't smell like intestines or gut or anything like that. Just dark blood, liver blood. And if he is still alive, I don't want to push him. It's going to be getting dark here soon, but while I had some daylight, I let it get about 7-8 hours after the shot. Came in and was at least able to pick up the blood trail and at least get a direction on him and have a place to start tomorrow. Like I said, liver hits are going to be highly variable in lethality, and I just don't want to bump a wounded deer, big buck like that, to have a ton of stamina. They're just so strong. I'm just going to back out for now. But anyways, that is the plan. Alright, it is the next morning here. I'm going to see if I can pick up on any blood here, continue to get a direction of travel, and then if not, it's just going to come down to a body search. Hopefully he's just somewhere right up here ahead of me close, but if this kind of hit, he could go a long ways before he ever bedded down. There's a lot of magpies in this area, so I'm also going to be paying attention for that. See if you can see them gathering anywhere to where they would indicate that the buck is laying there. Hopefully we find him here before too long. Now the good thing is with this open timber, ponderosa pines, I can see a long ways and kind of grid and body search fairly quickly, cover a lot of ground with my eyes. It's about 8:30 right now. I've already gridded kind of more over on the other side of the ridge from where I shot the buck, and it's way more open over there. I've come over the ridge now and I've gotten more into this thick cover, and this is kind of where I expected that buck to go. This is really like the thickest cover around. You got some wooded draws with deciduous trees and stuff like that. It's a little bit more thick back in here, and I don't want to get my hopes up too much. But I've been hearing a magpie and seeing a magpie up in a tree over here, just on this opposite ridge, and it's kind of more of this kind of cover over there. So it's not sitting there anymore, but I could hear it for a while in that spot. Like it hadn't moved, like maybe it was sitting over the top of the deer or something, or maybe it was on the deer. And as you can tell, I put the orange vest on. It is still rifle season here, so out of an abundance of caution, I've got the orange on. Even though there shouldn't be anybody rifle hunting here. But I'm just gonna go check out this ridge where I heard that magpie. Like I said, I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but it had been sitting in the same place for a long time. Magpies and crows and ravens, stuff like that, can oftentimes lead you to a deer or an elk or whatever. Oh my gosh, there he is. Yep, there he is. Magpie led me to him. That's, like I said, I didn't want to get my hopes up too much. But sure enough, there he is. Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, it doesn't look like the coyotes got to him either. What a relief. What a buck. Oh my word. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Yes. Look at that thing. What a stud of a 10-pointer. What a buck. Look at that thing. Oh, and he's been dead for a long time. That shot came out. I mean, the shot exited behind his shoulder on the opposite side. It hit like there on the other side, steep quartering. Like I talked about, it looked like the arrow kind of angled up deeper up into the chest cavity. And he probably expired fairly quickly. He's obviously been dead for a while. But another thing I noticed in the footage when I look back on it, he's got blood on his antlers. He had that on his antlers before I shot him. And it looked like he'd been gored in the neck, like he had just recently got in a fight with a buck and had blood on his antlers. I hate to see the loser of that fight, but holy cow. What a stud of a deer. Oh my gosh, what a relief. Awesome buck. I know my cousin, my brother, my dad, they're all going to be fired up. Thankfully, the coyotes did not get him, did not touch him. What a Thanksgiving treat right there. Oh, yes. Man, what a blessing. So thankful to have found this buck. Just sent pictures to everybody. Got off the phone with my cousin. Just got off the phone with my dad. My dad had ankle surgery, so he's been cooped up all fall, at least the latter part of the fall. And he missed the annual hunting trip out here, so he kind of had to live vicariously through my cousin, my brother, and myself. We were all feeding him details of what's going on. And he hit the nail on the head and said this buck is a result of teamwork, and that's exactly how I feel about it. I kind of feel like it's all of our deer, especially my cousin Ryan. Big shout out to him because he had been getting this buck on trail camera. That's how we knew about him in the first place. We've made a lot of fun memories hunting on this property, going back, like I said, to 2007 when we first started hunting here. But anyways, big thanks to my cousin Ryan, my brother Matt, and my dad, who got to kind of live vicariously through us all this year with the text and the pictures and the stories of what was happening. So that is awesome.